Welcome to 10, the Tenant Experience Network. I'm your host, David Abrams. In this episode, we are connecting with David McGuinness, Head of Business Development, CRE, Motorola Solutions. In this episode, we learn how David's career journey began in the technology space as a consultant. He eventually transitioned into the software side of tech before landing at Openpath, and now at Motorola Solutions since being acquired. David learned early in his career the benefits of surrounding yourself with people smarter than you. He went on to share some advice that he received from one of his first mentors. Learn something new every day, teach someone something new every day, and have fun. We discussed the changing relationship between building operators and their tenants, in particular, how there is much more focus on the customer and adopting a hospitality approach to engagement. From the access control side, David suggested that FlexSpace has emerged as a compelling channel for their client base. David provided a great overview and evolution of the building access industry and how it has been impacted by cloud computing and mobile connectivity. We could not ignore a discussion around the role of buildings in communities and the impact that changing consumer behaviors have had. We wrapped up our conversation with some thoughts on the use of building access technology in several different applications, catering to different types of users. We're excited to share this podcast with you, so be sure to subscribe to 10 so you never miss an episode of the Tenant Experience Network. And now I'd like to welcome David to the show. I'm really glad you could be with us today. How are you?
David, I'm great, thanks. I'm been looking forward to this time and hope you're having a great start to your Monday.
I am, and let's get into it. My favorite question, tell us about your journey to your current position role. How did you get started?
Yeah, so it was sort of a circuitous route. If you had asked me, or if somebody had asked me when I was coming out of school, or even my first few years in the workforce, if I'd be doing what I'm doing, and there's not a chance I would have guessed this. So it sort of happened, by accident. I got into the technology space back in the 90s, sort of the earliest days of the internet. And I was on the consulting side, right? So professional services, more of guidance to customers, Fortune 500 type clients. And from there, one of the lessons I learned was sort of the importance of focusing on strategy, right? Business strategy and outcome before you made any determinations on technology selection. I think that sort of served me well in the current role. But from there, I got out of the consulting side and I got into software product, which was interesting just to kind of round out my understanding of the space. It was a video analytics firm, so kind of early on with computer vision. And the technology was primarily used for security applications. So that's kind of how I got into the access control business where I'm at today, and also video. And from there, I left that company and joined a security company that did both services and tech. So it was sort of a combination of my past two stops. And then during that time, I was running corporate strategy, and there was this pesky startup that was really sort of creating a lot of buzz in the industry. And I had the good fortune of just inadvertently being introduced to one of the founders. And as I got to speak with them more and more, I realized that they were for real. And so I joined Openpath a little over 3.5 years ago. And it's been some of the best, most exciting years of my professional journey. And right before the headwinds of the economic crisis that we're kind of flirting with today, Motorola Solutions acquired Openpath. So in July of 2021. And the great thing there was not only is it a fantastic, kind of Fortune 500 in and of itself, but it's accelerated our growth and our objective of being the number one security provider in the world, and with a special emphasis for me on serving the commercial real estate and multifamily markets.
Amazing. So just the begs the question, if not, if you hadn't gotten into the software side, the technology side, and you didn't think that's where you'd end up, did you have an idea of where perhaps you would have headed?
It's going to be so boring. So when I got out of school, my first job was actually with Chevron Chemical.
Okay.
So I spent some years there in the petrochemical business on selling raw materials into the packaging industry. So lo and behold, I might have been in the packaging industry still if it weren't for tech.
Well, I'm glad it worked out this way, and I'm glad as another pesky little founder of a startup, I get an opportunity to chat with you today. So tell me, why do you think you were so uniquely suited to this opportunity? So again, maybe it wasn't exactly what you thought, coming out of school. What made you successful? What has helped you to be successful?
Yeah, I'd say the people around me have been really the sort of the key factor in my success. So, I learned kind of early on whether I was, just an employee in a company or if I was running the company, that surround yourself with a diverse set of people that are smarter than you goes a long way, right? You start to get a better understanding of different perspectives. You start to become more curious, I think, and that just in turn just makes you more effective at what you do. So I'd say that was one key factor. Starting in the technology space on the consulting side, you learn to ask a lot of questions and not be embarrassed by asking those questions. So that's helped me round out to become what I'd call like a technical business person. I'm still a business person. I'm not a developer, but I understand the technology and how things fit together. And I think the last thing was really the advice that I learned from a mentor kind of early on in my professional journey, which was, every day there's three things you need to accomplish. Number one, learn something new every day. Number two, teach someone something new. And number three is have fun. And if you do those three things every day, you're going to find that you just generate this pattern and this journey of success. And so that's what I really attribute it to.
Right. Yeah. If you can get into that rhythm, rinse and repeat, right? Just keep doing
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
I like that. We often get bogged down in the day to day, and I think taking time to think about those three factors probably is a very healthy thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so simple. So
Right.
so many people just don't embrace it. And honestly, if my mentor hadn't explicitly called it out, and sort of made you recite that on a daily basis, maybe I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing or at the level that I'm doing it.
Right. Well, thanks for sharing that learning. I always like to look for those tidbits that we could share with our listeners that can help impact them as well. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Listen, if you're knee deep in the commercial real estate space, as are we, I think we can agree that we're still going through some pretty turbulent times. They're not quite over. Certainly creating new opportunities. We've got commercial real estate, the largest asset class in the world, continuing to rebound. We've been through a period of historically low levels of occupancy. The industry is continuing to evolve to meet the emerging needs of this industry, of the people that are living and working in buildings. And we have technology, continuing to disrupt the industry. And I think that's a good thing. And I think it's, really providing some incredible opportunity. Our team certainly believes that the workplace in particular is now much part of a much larger workspace ecosystem. And that's creating opportunity. And, we can now work from just about anywhere. The physical workplace, a building, we can work from our dining room at home, a co-working space, a local cafe, your vacation destination. So we think that has tremendous ramifications for the industry. And given your space and the lens that you bring to the industry, would love to know what you're seeing. What now do you think the industry is doing to respond to the needs of commercial real estate occupants? What's your perspective?
Yeah, it's fascinating, and whether time has helped me, put me in a better position to understand what's going on, because this is not the first down cycle I've been through.
Right.
And that usually everything recovers, right? It just takes a little time, and it's an opportunity for innovation. And, so a couple of things that, I'm seeing right now is number one, the way landlords think about tenants.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's no longer just, hey, I signed a lease. It's 5 year, it's 7 year, it's 10 year. I know the office administrator or the executive on the finance team that signed the lease, or that maybe it's the CEO for a smaller company that's leased space. And that's the extent of my interaction. Right. I hear from them when it's too warm in the office or something's broken or something needs to get painted. Today, it's all about establishing relationships and connections all throughout the entire workforce of those companies that are leasing space for you. So it's, to me, it's sort of the democratization of space. Number one. Number two, there's much more thoughtfulness around customer, right, as compared to a tenant. And that's, to me, is adopting hospitality concepts, right, and bringing those to where we go to work. And it's interesting. Now, for me, being on the Motorola Solutions side with video and access control, it's also about how do you enable technology to be flexible to meet these changing and emerging needs, right, and business concepts. So For us, it's about helping landlords, helping operators navigate and deliver the ability to offer flexible space, right? And that can be flexible space that's within a single structure, or it could be across my network of properties, right? So that's what we're kind of seeing is that, how do you adapt? I don't think people will be going back to the office 5 days a week.
Right.
I think that horse is out of the barn, has left the barn. But what I do think is people are recognizing the value of going to workspace, and whether it's my HQ hub that I work out of, or maybe it's a satellite location that's just a little more convenient for me to go to when I need like some personal time. But to me, it outweighs sort of working from home all the time, which is something that I've been sort of relegated to the last few years.
Right. No, totally agree. I want to just echo your earlier comment about, the customer and sort of, how it used to be, i.e., every 5 years or 10 years when it was time for lease renewal, you were knee deep in conversation with your customer. And just recently we had two important guests on our program, John Love, CEO of Kingset, a return guest, and Brian Rosen from Colliers Canada. And, for the first time, both acknowledged that they now view CEOs, very large real estate operators and owners, recognize their customer as the person that walks into their building each and every day.
Yep.
That is a transformation. And I think that's very exciting for our industry.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you. And, some of the other stuff that we're able to do now today is provide visibility into occupancy, right?
Right.
When are people arriving? When are they not? Right? Where are they going? How are they using, the entire building options that are available to them? Which tenants are most active returning? Because that maybe gives you an indication of health of that business for a renewal, and which tenants aren't showing up, right? Which might flag that, hey, they're a potential risk when that lease comes up for renewal or expiration.
Right. I think given the work that you do and your relationship with potentially both landlord and the occupier, we certainly believe there's an opportunity for landlords, building owners, and operators to be working more closely with the customer, most closely with those that occupy space in terms of attracting and retaining the best talent and helping to create experiences, not only leaving it up to the individual occupier, but the building itself as well, and helping to build, great companies, great buildings, great communities. What are you seeing? How often are you working with the building operator versus the occupier, or both, in delivering building access?
Yeah, so you're right. From a company perspective, we're working both sides, right? So the landlord, the operator, as well as the occupants, the tenant companies that are leasing space. My focus is primarily on the building owner, the landlord, owner, operator, or developer. And so we spend, a lot of time trying to be thoughtful and trying to be contributing what we learn on the tenant side and how that might shape or inform an appropriate position for a landlord themselves. To me, I think about the office is really sort of an intersection of digital interaction, which is obviously what we're doing right now, plus that face-to-face or physical interaction, right? And that's so it plays a really important factor. And I think about how that affects, company culture. Right, in terms of the bonds that you develop and the embracing or the understanding of a vision, right, and how that continues to evolve. I think that's amplified, and it's easier to translate when you're face to face with people than to do it over phone calls or video platforms, meeting platforms. I think it's also the means of establishing friendships, deep friendships with people that you work with, right, which only makes that employer stickier, right? But I think, I think back of my progression through the workforce, and right now I'm generationally at an exciting time, right? I get to work with new people, young professionals that are just starting. Maybe it's their first job right out of a school, or it's people that are maybe a little older, and they're really starting to make progress climbing the corporate ladder. And I think back of, what was it like when I was their age? And so much of what I learned was just enabled by being in the office, right? Being around people and learning through osmosis. And what I learned through osmosis was probably every bit, if not more important than what I learned in a classroom.
Right.
And so to me, that it has to be what gets embraced, right? Just your ability to better comprehend, better understand, and better develop as a professional, that's all enabled by being in that office place.
Agreed. So to better educate me and perhaps our listeners, and also to help give a plug to you, talk to me a little bit more about the technology. This is a little bit off script, but we're out there talking with building owners and operators. We're obviously very focused on helping to digitize the customer experience, reducing friction, improving efficiency, creating community, helping to attract and retain tenants. But we're often asked about building access. I'm sure that does not surprise you. And in some cases, their first question is, we have a legacy system, we can't necessarily rip and replace. So tell me a little bit about how your technology works, just to also help me as I'm having conversations with potential partners. Is it a rip and replace? Is it layering software and some hardware on top of? What does that look like? It'll certainly be helpful to me to better understand.
Yeah. No, thanks for teeing that up. So it's really sort of the response is a combination of things. It could be adding software and hardware. It could be rip and replace. It really depends on what's currently deployed. So we're talking about existing operating properties, whether it's multifamily or whether it's commercial office. Coming out of the legacy business of Openpath, as we joined the Motorola Solutions company or platform, we are on the access control side. And what's really interesting about access control is, for the most part, it hasn't changed much since the 1990s, right? It's still very much a client server sort of software architecture. You've got software that gets installed locally. It runs on a PC or on a server somewhere, whether it's in a closet or under somebody's desk. You've got to nurture that system. Anytime there's a software update, somebody's got to apply it to those systems, to those PCs, that computational hardware. Anytime there's a operating system update, that gets done as well. And what happens is systems just don't get updated, right? Until you get to a point of vulnerability. And then you're like, oh, crud, what do I do? Or that computational hardware has to get replaced. And it's still very much a card-based system, right? So anytime I add somebody, I got to get that number off that card, program it into that person's profile, program it, hand it to you, and you're off and running. The approach that we've taken is, let's use modern technology. Let's get out of the 1990s and let's start afresh. And so we built our platform kind of with three attributes that are sort of differentiating, and it's surprising that they are in the 21st century. Number one, it's native cloud-based, right? So you get rid of that computational hardware on premise. You don't worry about software updates because they push automatically, right? All the way down to the reader if necessary without a truck roll. You get rid of being tied to licenses that say I can only manage my system from this particular laptop or this particular PC. Make it available from anywhere. And during the pandemic, we learned that people aren't obviously working out of the office. So they have to be able to do their work from home, right? Or wherever they happen to be in the world, as long as they have an internet connection and a browser. So that was goodness number one. Number two about the cloud is obviously you can be nimble. So as you're adapting to new business models or needs, getting to how do you support flexible work, you can do that all by pushing updates through the cloud. It's different than having to run people from building to building to apply software updates. Second thing we did was we focused on mobile first. We believe mobile is the most convenient, most secure, most enabling credential. It can do a lot more than a card or a fob could do because it's interactive, right? And it's really easy to administer and really easy to distribute. You as an end user, you download the Hilo app. At some point, we hope it'll have our SDK in it, so you get our mobile credential in it. Once you have that, you're set. Any door that you have permission to unlock, you can unlock, right, with your mobile app. And you can keep that phone in your pocket. You simply go up, you wave your hand or touch a reader, door magically unlocks. I think the third thing that made us different and why we've become so particularly successful in the ecosystem of property technology partners is we're an open platform. Our API is public. It's on our website. Anything we can do natively has an API call to it. So it really enables our technology partners to become that single pane of glass and eliminate the need for any secondary app or any secondary portal, administrative portal. We also have an SDK, right? So that means that everything that we can do in our native app is now delivered through yours. And those have been the things that have been sort of differentiating. All three of them are important. Some of them get kind of dismissed as, yeah, that's not that big a deal anymore. But what we're finding is there's still a lot of legacy tech that just doesn't support the needs of today's owners, operators, or end users.
Right. So and just briefly on on the hardware side,
Yeah.
can it layer on top of existing hardware? Are there some hardware that needs to be replaced, patches? What does that look like?
Yeah. So for us, at a minimum, on the access control side, we need one of our own access control panels. We call them smart hubs. They're the things that wind up in like IDF closets, and then
Right.
all the electrified door hardware and readers wire back to them. We can use third-party readers, not a problem. If those are already in place, continue to use them. Our readers, we call them smart readers. They do some special things that enhance the mobile experience. And what we find is most of our end customers wind up using our access readers, our smart readers, because
Right.
it'll still support fobs and cards, but it enables that, keep my phone in my pocket, wave my hand type experience on the mobile side. On the video side, same exact thing. We can work with existing video infrastructure. Those
Right.
cameras plug into what we call a cloud connector. And that now makes those cameras that were dumb, now gives them analytics and the ability to manage them from the cloud. Or greenfield, hey, we want to add a camera, or this
Right.
camera has sort of died. You put in one of our net new cameras. It's a PoE device, and now all of a sudden I've got best in class analytics, cloud management, and all the storage happens directly on that device itself.
Perfect. Great. That was really helpful. Thank you for that. We think a lot about buildings, and we don't think of them just as silos. We really think about them as part of neighborhoods and cities. And we believe there's just an incredible opportunity to think of them more, as part of that collective. Just curious from your perspective, and also again through the lens of building access, do you think that buildings and workplaces can play a role in creating larger and more connected communities?
Yeah, I'd say without question, the answer is definitively yes. I mean, you just think about the past couple of years, right? So we go through a pandemic, we're starting to work from home, and the effect that has on that local community, right? When a building is full, people are taking public transit in, right? So you're keeping that system funded and operational, and keeping it safer because there's people on it. When we go to work, we're consumers, right?
Yeah.
So I'm buying things either to or from work, or during my lunch break, I'm buying food, right? I'm dropping off my dry cleaning. I'm stopping in local businesses and supporting them. I'm entertaining after hours. I mean, there's just so much goodness that comes from that. And that was recognized. And that was sort of why mixed use, live, work, play developments were occurring, right? It's like there's just this natural connectivity that we all experienced then. And the past couple of years, some markets have really suffered from it, right? When a building is vacant now, or largely vacant, all of those consumer behaviors change, right? And so once that happens, it has a negative effect, I think, on that community. Right now, I've got storefronts that are vacant, right? People have moved out. I've got businesses that just can't quite cut it anymore. And that just creates this level of depression. So I think it's really important, the role that buildings and businesses that occupy those buildings, that they play in those local communities. Without question, it's tied together.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's fascinating. We're having lots of conversations with different stakeholder groups, BIAs, business improvement areas, or business improvement districts, and talking with other real estate developers that are really focusing in on that mixed use, creating that 15-minute city where everything, is accessible and available. And also obviously recognizing the impact that this had on, major cities like New York and Toronto and others. So there's still a lot to unpack as we continue to, come through this period of time. But I think bringing people back to buildings again with some level of frequency is ultimately, I think, good for everybody.
Yeah, I agree with you.
All right, let's take a short break. We'll pause for a commercial and we'll be right back.
This episode of 10 is proudly brought to you by Hilo. Hilo is a rapid deployment workplace engagement platform for the hybrid world that enables building operators to connect to their tenants, whether they are at work, at home, or anywhere in between. We are in the midst of a seismic shift in the evolution of the workplace. Now more than ever, it's clear that the most important asset of a building is the people. Commercial real estate leaders recognize that tenants and employees want new kinds of spaces, services, and amenities to support having the flexibility to work from anywhere. Workplace engagement solutions that connect hybrid working people to buildings no matter where they are have become a major differentiator as buildings compete to retain current tenants and attract new ones. Hilo empowers building operators to meet this challenge. To learn more about Hilo and schedule a demo, visit hiloapp.com.
And now I'd like to welcome back to the show David McGuinness, Head of Business Development, CRE and Multifamily, Motorola Solutions. Again, thank you for being with us. I'm really enjoying our conversation.
I am as well, David. Thank you. You're being kind to me.
Oh, of course. As I mentioned earlier, technology is playing such a significant role in shaping how building operators are delivering great experiences to their tenants, their customers, and workplace engagement certainly is uppermost in everyone's mind and really presents some incredible opportunities as to how we can do things differently. So certainly through your lens, through building access, but any other perspective that you might be able to offer, what are you seeing from a technology perspective that is being introduced into both multifamily and commercial that's really gaining traction and contributing to delivering better experience?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that's going on, both in terms of how buildings are being repositioned and designed or redesigned to make them more inviting, more comfortable, more hospitality-like. Specifically, though, when I'm looking at from an access standpoint, what are the themes that are really emerging in support of the reality of flexible workspaces? It's resource booking is becoming more and more common, right? So it could be within my own company that I work for, where we now are utilizing resource booking, so I can book a desk. So it's a sort of a hoteling type concept where I book conference rooms, right, for team events or team efforts. That's extending to maybe alternate office locations that Motorola Solutions might operate, or it might be flexible workspace operators that we have contracts with, right? So I can, if I have to do something that's beyond working in the house, I have places that I can go based upon how far I want to travel or what my objectives are for that day or that week. We're seeing it on the building side as well, right? It's not just, hey, you reserve space in your own your own office, but we might have our own flexible spaces that were vacant spaces before, right? So they get built out as spec suites, and then there are short-term monetization strategies through making them flexible. Right? So I can offer it while it's still in the market. I could offer it out on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. We're also seeing a network effect of I'm an owner operator. I've got buildings in certain regions of the country. I'm going to connect those buildings as almost like a loyalty or membership group. Right. You work in my building in Chicago, you're going to be in LA next week. Book that space. Now you have an address to go to in Los Angeles when you have downtime, right? And we're seeing that also in multifamily, right? Of, hey, I'm traveling. Is there a place I can work out? Hey, great. There's a community that's pretty close to where I'm staying in the city or where I'm working out of the city. I'm going to go use that workout facility because I'm a member of that organization. And that's all enabled through dynamic access control privileges, right? Because I booked that reservation, I can get in the parking garage, I can get into the lobby, I can get to the floor through the elevator, and I can unlock those doors that I need to get to my ultimate destination, which is that desk or that conference room.
Right. You really just highlighted for me, thank you very much, one of the reasons why we developed Hilo as a platform and not just another building app provider. You talked about, a provider that has, buildings perhaps in multiple cities and yet wanting to provide a very seamless, holistic solution. So rather than have them have to download all those different building apps, we'd like them to be able to go to a single platform. But when they're traveling to Los Angeles from, San Diego, be able to maybe access a building or a flex suite in that space, and again, do it in a very seamless and reduce, all those points of friction. So very interesting. And we're starting to see other professionals like yourself, help suggest use cases that really help support the type of vision that we have for the industry.
Yeah, no, that's I mean, you guys have such a tremendous reputation in the marketplace. So not surprising that you're kind of ahead of even my simple thinking on the topic.
Well, we're trying to. It's evolving, every day, and you've just got to be willing to sort of continue to look at things differently.
Yeah.
Our last sort of section of questions is really an opportunity to get to know you a little bit better, more on a personal level. So when you're not working, what are you doing? What's keeping you busy?
Yeah. So, I've always found cooking to be a really relaxing activity for me. And it serves as an outlet for gratitude, right, towards the people that I love and care about. So to me, I've been ratcheting up my cooking game, especially during COVID, being able to take like master classes online. And to me, it's one of the greatest things that we can do for each other, right?
Yeah.
You get the opportunity to put your love into something, serve people that you care about, and engage with them.
Yeah, it brings people together, and there's nothing better than celebrating over good food,
Exactly.
and good drink. So, what's your favorite beverage of choice?
Yeah, so I'd say today it's bourbon neat has
Okay,
been sort of the kind of the primary go-to. Although living in San Diego, I have this obligation that I have to have, one or a couple of IPAs, beers during the
okay,
course of a week. But
okay. It's your obligation.
that's right.
Favorite movie or current TV series that you're watching? There's a lot of talk about a bunch that are kind of wrapping up their seasons at the moment. What are you into?
Yeah, God, there's really no shortage of content out there. For
Yeah,
me, the hardest thing is how do you navigate and find the stuff that's like that I really enjoy.
it's
But I
true.
would say one program that I'm a little late getting on, but we're just wrapping it up is The Last of Us,
Okay.
right, with Pedro Pascal. So to me, it's it's a little bit dark.
Right.
It really kind of keeps the real world in perspective for me, right? We're not at the point where we're at the end of a civilization yet. Right. So it's been pretty fun to watch.
I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah.
Name one way in which technology has improved how you live or work.
Yeah. For me, this really goes back to, kind of those objectives for every day, right? To me, it's learn something new. And so I
Mhm.
would say online learning has been
Right.
something that I've really been embracing more over the last 24 to 36 months. So it starts with, cooking classes. Maybe I'm taking a Thomas Keller class on masterclass. But lately I've been trying to learn languages at a basic level. So
Yep.
things like Duolingo, right? Where they've done a really clever thing of gamification.
My
So it
my
taps
wife
into go
my
ahead.
wife is a huge fan. I think she's closing in on a 3,000-day streak.
Wow. Holy
Yeah,
geez. That's remarkable. I mean, it makes the gamification piece just makes you want to do it every day.
totally.
Right. And all it takes is like 15 minutes, 15 to 30
Yeah,
minutes a day. And it's not like I'm conversational, but I
yeah,
understand things, right? And at least I know how to say certain things.
yeah. Good for you. Your personal choice for days spent in person with your colleagues versus working from anywhere.
Yeah, yeah, that's an easy one for me. I'll take a day working face to face with colleagues over being remote.
Okay,
As much as I am a remote worker, whether it's I'm working out of the house or I'm traveling out to see customers
right,
and technology partners, I love the chances I get to be with my colleagues.
right. Awesome. Okay, listen, David, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I really learned a lot and enjoyed our conversation. I know our listeners will as well. I hope this is the first of many. We are continuing to collaborate with Motorola going forward, and we're excited about those opportunities. And I'm sure there'll be more as we move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. It was a pleasure.
Great. Take care. I want to thank David McGuinness for joining me on this episode of 10 and for contributing to the global conversation around buildings being part of a robust ecosystem, helping to build great companies, and that they are vital in the effort to cultivate and support great people and teams. The future of the workplace will likely take many forms, and we will continue to explore what that looks like together. Subscribe to 10 for more conversations with leading CRE industry professionals and experts who all have something to say about tenant experience and the future of the workplace. We love hearing from you, so if you enjoyed this episode of 10, please share, add your rating, and review us through your preferred podcast provider. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on a future episode, please reach out to me directly at david@hiloapp.com. And until our next episode, I wish you all continued success in building community where you work and live. Thank you.